Hello and welcome to the channel. As always, like the video, and if you enjoyed the story, leave a comment on if you would want more. This fanfiction was not created by me, but in the description there is a link to the fanfic so you can show your support to the creator and read along. Without any more delay, let's dive into the story.
Henry, Nfaria yells. Nfaria? Is that you? Henry says to him. Nfaria is relieved that Henry is the girl the goblins were talking about, but wonder how in the world they came to call her elder sister. While he was pondering that, Henry spoke up. It's nice to see you, Nfaria. I'm sure you are wondering about the goblins and wall. Why don't you come to my house? We can sit down and talk, she says to him. Nfaria clearly sees that Henry isn't worried in the least at the goblins and seems to be in a rather good mood. He wondered what happened and wanted to talk to Henry about it as soon as possible. I would like that, Henry. It seems a lot has happened since I was here last. Nfaria says to her. Boss, are you sure about all of them? Those 4 in the back give off a very dangerous feeling. Jugum says to Henry. Yes, Mr. Jugum. If Nfaria trusts them enough to guard him, then we can trust them not to cause trouble in the village, she tells the goblin. With that said, Nfaria brought his cart just inside the gate, then hopped down to follow Henry on foot. The Swords of Darkness stayed to guard the cart while Mammon and the rest said they wanted to check the perimeter. It wasn't totally a lie. Ainz did want to see what kind of progress they made in just a few days and wasn't disappointed at what he saw. He still found it funny the villagers were in awe of 10 golems. He wondered how they would react to seeing hundreds of them used as nothing more than spectators in the Colosseum on the 6th floor of Nazareth. Once Ainz and everyone were far enough away that no villagers or goblins could hear them, Albedo spoke up to tell Lord Ainz and Lady Taylar something she had overheard at the camp. Lord Ainz, Lady Taylar, I believe we can use that girl Henry to trap Nfaria into doing whatever you two wish of him. Albedo, I thought I asked you not to call me Lord. I know we are not at home, so you shouldn't call me Mamanga, but please stop with the Lord stuff already. Ainz says to her. I second that, Albedo, and what do you mean we can use him because of something you overheard at the camp? Taylar says to her. I heard that Nfaria human tell the Swords of Darkness that he was in love with that Henry girl Lord Ainz saved. I'm sure we can use that to keep him indebted to us for however long you like. Albedo tells them. You don't seem to be budging on this Lord and Lady thing, Albedo. Why is that? Taylar asks her. I don't feel I deserve such a reward after my mistake, Lady Taylar. Albedo tells her. We both already told you that you did not make a mistake, Albedo. Didn't Ainz tell you he would have done the same thing if you would have waited for just a second longer? Taylar asks Albedo. Lord Ainz is kind and merciful. He was probably telling me what he thought I wanted to hear. I do not dash. Are you saying I lied to you, Albedo? Ainz yells at her, do not presume you know what I am thinking. If you fuck up, I will let you know. Like right now, do not put words in my mouth, Albedo. All 3 of them are a little startled at Ainz's tone. They haven't witnessed him get mad like this yet. He always managed to reel it in when it was taking him over, but he was getting so angry his aura of despair was kicking in, and even affecting Taylar and Albedo even though they were level 100. Ainz notices this and calms down a bit to finish his words to Albedo. I am sorry about getting that angry, but Albedo, hear me and listen carefully. You did not make a mistake with that adventurer. It brought 2 humans to us that can be very useful without us having to do much of anything. Now you have brought us information, Taylar, and I would have missed out on because of my outburst at the camp. You have done more on this trip to help Nazareth than anyone else so far. Do not regress back to what you were when we first got here just because you think you fucked up. You did not, and when or if you do, we will let you know. I am sorry, Lord Dash. I mean Ainz. I will keep working hard for Nazareth. Albedo tells him. That is much better, Albedo. We are all in this together, and we will figure it out together. If you have questions about anything, just ask one of us. We will do the same to you, Albedo. Taylar tells her. Meanwhile, back at Henry's house. Henry and Nfaria are sitting at the dining room table talking about the events that lead to this point in Karn village. When he heard what happened to the village and to Henry's parents, Nfaria was filled with a rage he hadn't experienced yet in his young life. When he looked to Henry, though, she seemed to already have put it behind her, and he realized he had no right to be that angry if she wasn't. He could see the tears about to form in her eyes, but she simply wiped them away and replaced it with a look of determination on her face. I still have Nemu to worry about, so I can't just lose myself to despair. Someone needs to teach her how to grow up and be a good person, and that has to be me. I am her big sister after all, Henry tells him. Nfaria was deep in thought once the rage passed him by. Maybe now was the perfect time to tell Henry how he felt about her. He certainly made enough money at his job to take care of Henry and Nemu. Maybe he should just ask them to move to the city with him where he could take care of them. He felt the determination well up inside of him, and he started to stand, but as soon as he looked into her eyes, he lost his will to tell her and managed to stumble out the only thing that came to mind. Aye, if you need anything, Henry. JJ, just let me know, he says, shouting and whispering some words. Thanks, Nfaria. I know I can count on you. You are the best friend I could have, she tells him. Yeah, friend, that is how she sees me. Maybe I'm just not what she is looking for in a man, he thinks to himself. Of course, Henry, we have been friends for a long time, is all he gets out. When he looks at her radiant smile, all he can think is how beautiful she is. He needs to ask about something else. He can already feel his face heating up just staring at her. So what is up with those goblins, Henry? They call you elder sister. Why is that? He asks. Oh, those goblins appeared after I used the horn my savior Lord Ainz gave me. They seem to follow any order I give them, and they have been very helpful around the village since we lost so many in the attack, she tells him. The look in Henry's eye is not lost on Nfaria when she is talking about Ainz. It gave him an empty feeling inside, like she had already found someone worthy of her. It wasn't the first time she had mentioned his name, and she always had that look in her eye when she talked about him. When he asked what he looked like, and she described an angel with black wings, and his facial features he knew from the way she said it, she thought he was attractive. When she described the other two women with him, Henry's expression seemed to change to one of admiration, not attraction. It must have been something to be saved by two angels, and it clearly left an impact on Henry. I believe he called it the Horn of the Goblin General, if I'm not mistaken, she finished. Nfaria had never heard of such a magic item, but it clearly existed. He wondered what kind of being this Ainz could be to give away such a magic item. He could see the unused one on Henry's waist, and it gave off a tremendous amount of magical energy. The one thing he did know is that summoned creatures were not supposed to last indefinitely. It was certainly a very powerful magic item. Do you happen to know where this Ainz is from, Henry? I would like to thank him myself if I could. Nfaria asks her. You don't know who they are, Nfaria? I thought since two of them were magic casters you would know who they were. I got to see Lord Ainz, Lady Taylar, and Lady Albedo again, but I didn't get a chance to talk to them. They flew off after they introduced Lupus Regina to us and lent us the golems that are outside. I was really hoping to thank them properly. Henry says to him. WWY, do you WW want to talk to them again, Henry? He asks her. Well, I'd like to thank them properly. The villagers had the idea of building a statue for them, but if they would have shown up a second later, I would definitely be dead. I think I should at least show my gratitude for what they did for me and Nemu, she replies. The admiration and longing that Henry's voice carried did nothing to ease Nfaria's tension. He gathered up what determination he could to ask everything he could about Ainz. Of course you would want to thank him, Henry. If you could remember the spells they used or anything they said or did, it would help me narrow down the search. Oh, their magic was amazing. I can't remember what Lord Ainz said when he came through that portal thing, but Lady Taylar did ask him why he started with a tier 9 spell. Lady Taylar took down the other night attacking me with a spell called Holy Ray. At least that is what she said before a beam of pure light went through him and he dropped. She also said she was surprised he died from tier 4 magic. Henry tells him. Nfaria is doing everything in his power not to shake in his chair. Tier 9 magic. That is just stuff in myths. It didn't actually exist, and there was no one except one person in this entire world who could even cast Tier 6. He needed to know more, but wasn't sure if prying into these people was a good idea. Before he could make up his mind, Henry remembered some things that she didn't mention. Oh yeah, after the knights were dead. Lord Ainz tried to give me a potion to heal my wounds, but Nemu and I freaked out because we thought it was blood. Then Lady Taylar cast a spell on me called Heal. It made me feel better than I ever had. Then she cast 3 protection spells on me. They were called Anti-Life Cocoon, Wall of Protection from Arrows, and Sanctuary, I believe. Henry finishes. When Nfaria heard her say she didn't drink the potion because it looked like blood, he immediately thought of the potion the adventurer Brita brought in and the party that was here with him that gave her said potion. Even 2 of the 3 spells Henry just said he had witnessed Bella cast on him when the ogres and goblins attacked them. He had never seen or heard of those before, and it couldn't be a coincidence she could cast those also. They even had red potions like the ones they tried to give Henry. These with which that party killed those ogres and goblins was far beyond anything Nfaria had ever heard of. It was pointing more and more towards them being Lord Ainz, Lady Taylar, and Lady Albedo. At the very least, Nfaria was sure they at least served this Ainz old gown. The 9th tier is the stuff of myths Henry. I'm sorry, but that doesn't help me at all. Maybe if you told me more about that potion I could help you. I am a potion maker after all, he says to her. Wow, that is amazing. Lord Ainz casts magic from the storybooks. I really can't tell you anything more than what I already did in Nfaria. I was scared to drink it because it looked like blood even when Lord Ainz told me it would heal my wound. Then Lord Ainz put it away before Lady Taylar cast that healing spell on me. She tells him. It couldn't be called conclusive proof, but Nfaria was sure Mammon was either Ainz' old gown or served him. That brought up all sorts of thoughts from him. If Mammon was Ainz' old gown and was capable of casting Tier 9 spells on top of being an unequaled fighter, he was nothing short of a godlike being. The only thing that Nfaria really couldn't connect the dots on were their appearances. He thought it would be awful hard to hide a huge pair of white or black wings, and Mammon, Bella, Ariel, and Nabe clearly didn't have any. Bella was standing right next to him in the cart, and he didn't feel any feathers or anything like that. He never heard of an angelic shapeshifter before, but couldn't rule that out completely. He knew illusion magic would not be able to get rid of something like that, and someone would feel the wings if the person got too close. Although if Ainz was capable of casting Tier 9 spells, there could be any number of spells Nfaria knew nothing about that might do something like that. He then remembered all the questions Mammon was asking Ninya about magic. Why would someone who could cast Tier 9 magic be asking a novice mage about spells? It didn't make any sense to Nfaria. The deeper he thought about it, the more confused he got. Maybe he should just give Henry the support she needs for now and get to know Mammon before making up his mind. I'm sorry for asking so many questions about that day, Henry. I just wanted to help you out, but I'm afraid I don't really know anything that can help you based on what you told me, he tells her. It's okay, Nfaria. I'm sure I'll get a chance to thank them someday, Henry says to Nfaria. After she said that, they sat there in a weird silence. Nfaria finally said he needed to start preparing to head to the forest and made his way back to his cart. Back with Ainz and company. They're walking back towards Nfaria's cart when Ainz sees a group of villagers gathered near the wall. He looks to see why they are all there and notices them all practicing archery. The goblins summoned with the horn are teaching them how to shot a bow. He thought it was admirable at how much they learned in such a short time. He had no doubt Albedo and Narbril would probably think these villagers were weak insects who had no business using a bow. After all, he witnessed Taylar teaching Albedo. He thought maybe this would be a good moment for him to do the same and possibly calm down Narbril a bit. He couldn't have her calling every human they met some sort of insect every time she addressed them. He looked around to make sure no one was within earshot of them. Albedo, Narbril, what do you think of those villagers' archery skills? He asks them. They don't even look skilled enough to hunt to me. Albedo says. I agree with Lady Albedo, Lord Ainz. These insects shouldn't even be picking up weapons if that is all the skill they have. Narbril says to them, "Now it is my turn to teach you something about humans, Albedo. Narbril, I want you to listen as well. It is true they are not that skilled, but think about this. Until about a week ago, none of them had ever even picked up a bow, let alone fired one. They saw their friends and family slaughtered in front of them because they couldn't defend themselves. Now, with a little help from us and a determination to never be victims again, they have all taken it upon themselves to learn to defend themselves. Even the old people are learning from the goblins so that they never feel helpless again. That is why Taylar is so positive that girl Ainz we saved will grow to be someone special in this world. She learned very young you have to learn to be strong to survive. While humans will never be as strong as we are even if they reach their full potential, they can be useful if treated properly. Ainz tells both of them. I see, Lord Ainz. I did not think of it that deeply. They can be useful tools for the Supreme Ones. I never thought of them like that, Lord Ainz. Narbril says. I understand, Ainz. I have been trying to see them as more than insects like Taylar has asked of me, and now I know why you bothered wasting your precious time to save this village. I will continue to try hard to treat humans as you think I should. Albedo tells him. The response from Albedo was pretty much as expected. She had been doing very good learning to treat humans at least somewhat respectfully. He decided Narbril calling them tools was much better than insects. He doubted he could persuade Narbril to learn to act like Albedo had been, but this was certainly a start. After Ainz listened to Albedo and Narbril, they made their way back to Nfaria's cart. He should be ready to start his adventure into the forest to gather herbs soon. Ainz was interested in this wise king of the forest. He had no doubt it would raise their name considerably faster if they were to defeat this monster. He would call Aura when they entered the forest and have her bring him this wise king. Aura, are you available right now? Yes, Lord Ainz. What can I do for you, Lord? I have been hearing about this wise king of the forest in the forest of Tob. Do you know what creature they are talking about? I believe I do, Lord Ainz. I was thinking of skinning him and making a blanket out of his fur. If you would like him, Lord, I can deliver his corpse to you whenever you like. No, I want you to lead him to me alive. They need to witness this creature if I am to raise the status of our party in this world. Very well, Lord Ainz. When shall I deliver this creature to you? I will call for you when we enter the forest and meet you. We will discuss the details then. Yes, Lord Ainz. As he ends the message with Aura, he sees Nfaria making his way to his cart. When he looks at Ainz, he seems to tense a little bit. Ainz isn't quite sure why that is, but figures he might need to keep an even closer eye on this boy than usual. It would be easy to trap him using Ainz as the bait, but the boy's talent still scared Ainz to death. He wouldn't let that boy come within line of sight of the staff of Ainz Olgown. Mr. Maman, we will be heading into the FF forest in about an HH hour if you are ready by then. Nfaria stutters out. He is quite obviously nervous around Ainz now for some reason. We can be ready whenever you are, Mr. Berar. You are the employer after all. Ainz tells him. All right. We will head out in an hour. At this point, even the Swords of Darkness are wondering what is up with Nfaria. Silent. Zone of truth. Taylar casts her spell so no one would hear it. She wanted to ask Nfaria why he was so flustered. She knew he would have learned about the attack, but even that wouldn't bring about a reaction like this even if he really did love that girl. He had lied to them once, and she didn't trust him at all. Before she could ask, Dine asked for her. Mr. Berar, are you all right? You seem like you've seen a ghost or something. I am fine, Mr. Dine. Lie, learning what happened to Ainz and her village just shook me up more than I expected. Lie. Taylar has Zone of Truth up and knows Nfaria is lying to them. She also noticed he was glancing at Ainz on and off while he was talking nervously. She wasn't sure what it was about, but it certainly had to do with Ainz. Taylar would have to figure this out soon before something bad came of this. Ainz, whenever we set out, tell everyone you, Narbril, and Albedo are going to scout ahead while I stay behind in case someone needs to be healed. Nfaria was lying about why he is so flustered and was looking at you too much for it not to be a coincidence. I will try to get him alone and figure out what he knows. I wonder what it could possibly be. I know he talked to Henry, but what would that have to do with me? There is no way he figured out I am Ainz. We took many precautions against that, and I have been acting completely different than when I am Ainz. Well, he is pretty intelligent even for a boy, but I believe you were right that he couldn't have figured out you were Ainz. It would be more likely he would figure out who I was because of the spells I cast on him, but he was looking at you, not me when he was acting like that. Very well, I will scout ahead. I need to meet up with Aura anyway so she can lead this wise king of the forest to me. After 45 minutes had passed, Ainz thought this would be a good time for them to go ahead of everyone else. It would give him time to talk to Aura and hopefully buy enough time for Taylar to figure out what Nfaria knows. Nabe, Ariel, and I will be heading into the woods now to scout ahead and deal with any monsters we might come across. Mr. Dine and Luckrut should follow after about 15 minutes as the leads so they can get a clear path to the herbs Varia needs. Bella will stay with Nfaria in case he needs protection magic or healing cast on him and Peter, and Ninya can bring up the rear. We will meet you in the forest once our scouting is done. Ainz tells them, then immediately heads into the forest so no one can question his orders. He figured that was the best way to give Taylar some space to talk to the boy, and leaving abruptly wouldn't give anyone time to argue with him. Once they had gone a few hundred meters into the forest, Ainz calls out to Aura. Aura, let us talk about raising the name of Mammon in this world, he says. Albedo and Nabe are looking around wondering if Ainz had lost his mind only to hear a voice come from the trees above them. Yes, Lord Ainz, Aura says. Aura, when did you get there? Albedo says to her. The dark elf leaps out of the tree, does a somersault, and lands on the ground soft as a feather. She certainly has the skills of a level 100 ranger type. Ainz thinks to himself, oh, I've been following you since you entered the forest. I wouldn't be much of a ranger if you could detect me so easily, Overseer Albedo. The dark elf replies with a radiant, beaming smile on her face. So you know where this wise king of the forest is, Aura? Ainz asks. Yes, Lord Ainz. I believe the creature you are looking for is sleeping in a cave not far from here. After you gave me its description, it reminded me of a creature I saw while surveying the forest for dangerous creatures. I'm not quite sure why they call this creature the wise king of the forest. It seemed pretty weak when I appraised it, she tells him. Well, Aura, I haven't found anything in this world yet that could threaten any of the floor guardians in Nazarick. It's not surprising you believe it to be weak. It probably is slightly weaker than the warrior captain from Rieste Eyes. So to you, it would be nothing more than a mouse. Ainz tells the dark elf. Shall I go retrieve this creature for you, my lord? Aura asks. While I would love to get this over with now, we need to give Taylar time to speak with Varia. That boy has been acting strange and glancing at me since he talked with Henry and learned of the attack on the village. Taylar is going to have a talk with him and try to figure out what he knows, so we need to wait about 10 minutes to give her some time, he tells Aura. Very well, Lord Ainz. Aura replies. So how is everything going on the construction of the fake Nazarick, Aura? Ainz asks her. It is going very well, Lord Ainz. We should have the building completed in about a week. That is good to hear, Aura. I believe we are upsetting the balance of the forest, though, with our construction. We were attacked on the way here by ogres and goblins. Supposedly, that never happens because of the wise king of the forest. They were remarking that something must have changed to swing the balance of power in the forest. The only thing that comes to mind is us now having a presence in there. Be sure to sweep away any monsters that might threaten Karn Village. I can't afford to have the first peaceful place we encountered to be destroyed while we are away somewhere else. It would be a giant waste of time if that happened, he tells Aura. They continued making small talk, waiting for the time to arrive that they could bring the wise king of the forest out to Ainz. Back with Taylar and Nfaria. About 15 minutes had passed and Taylar told Luckrut and Dine to start making their way into the forest to get a good trail for them to follow to Nfaria's herbs he needed. The young man had explained to Dine what he was looking for, and Dine knew the best places to look for such herbs. Finding ingredients like this was second nature to a druid. He only needed to get close to them to know exactly where they were and could pick up a trail just by the smell in the air once he knew what to look for. When Nfaria and Taylar headed in a couple of minutes after them, she thought this was the perfect opportunity to question Nfaria. "So Nfaria, what about Mammon has you so flustered?" Taylar gets straight to the point. "WW, what do you mean, Bella?" Nfaria says. "I thought we were past this, Nfaria. You are a terrible liar, and I thought we established back at the guild. I am not someone you can lie to. I know the reasons you gave us for being flustered were lies, and you were glancing at Mammon on and off while lying. It is easy to piece together you are worried about something that has to do with Mammon. So I'll ask you for the last time, why are you so worried about Mammon?" Nfaria realizes there is no getting out of answering this question. He already knew he was a terrible liar and had admitted it to them. The tone that she had in her last question seemed to say, "Answer this question truthfully, or you will never make it out of this forest." Are you one of the beings WW who saved this VV village? Lady Taylar or Lady Albedo? You cast the same protection spells on me Henry told me Lady Taylar cast on her, and I have never seen those spells before. It can't be a coincidence. Ariel seems as strong as the Lady Albedo that Henry described to me, and Mammon seems as powerful as Lord Ainz. He is the only one I'm not very certain about. Henry told me he used a 9th tier spell, and I haven't seen Mammon cast any magic, but he is certainly as strong as Henry described. Nfaria tells Taylar. As soon as he asked his first question, Taylar's mind went into overdrive. She knew this boy was smarter than the average human, but figuring out who they were with that limited information was actually quite impressive. She guessed it was probably her protection spells that cemented in his mind their identities. It was good he asked a lot of questions. It gave her time to message Ainz and figure out a game plan. "Ainz, this boy figured out who me and Albedo were. He isn't sure you are Ainz, but is pretty certain I am Taylar and Albedo is who she is. It is because of the spells I cast on him during our fight that gave me away. I am sorry about that, love. It is not your fault, Taylar. I am the one who asked you to cast those spells on him. If anyone is to blame, it is me. I believe you can tell him who we are. Just don't give him too much information and do not mention Nazarick to him yet. We will have him in our service soon where we can keep an eye on him. We will start making our way back to you, and when we meet up, Aura is going to send the wise king of the forest our way, so we can defeat him and raise our names in this world. Don't you think you 3 defeating 50 ogres and goblins in 8 seconds would show your power enough? Ogres and goblins are one thing, but a legendary creature, feared by all who know of it, is another. Based on what Aura told me, this creature is probably a little weaker than the warrior captain we met. I just hope it is worth my time. This world is awfully boring when it comes to challenging fights. And why is that a bad thing? Nothing is allowed to happen to you, Mamanga. Nothing. I know you are always looking for a challenge, but you are not allowed to leave me alone in this world. Sorry, just old habits. I promise I won't be going anyway, Taylar. Are you the only one who knows I am Lady Taylar, Nfaria? She asks the boy. Why, yes, I wasn't certain who you were, and I figured you were hiding your identity for a reason. Nfaria replies, Yes, that is correct. We have been asleep for a long time and are trying to get an idea of how the world works nowadays. Right now, we are just adventurers looking to go on quests. Please keep that in mind and don't tell anyone what you have learned here today, she tells him. Thank you for saving this village, Nfaria says and gives a slight bow to Taylar. I thought I told you to keep that to yourself. What do you think Peter and Ninya would think if they saw you bowing to me? She says to him and give him a look as if to say stop acting like an idiot. I am sorry, Lady Taildash. Hey, what the hell did I just say? My name is Bella Nfaria. Only call me that, nothing else, for now, please, she tells him. Back with Ainz and company. Albedo, it seems Nfaria has figured out who you and Taylar are. I believe it is because of the spells I had Taylar cast on him when we fought those ogres and goblins. It seems the information you overheard at the camp will be useful much sooner than needed to keep that boy quiet for now. Ainz tells her. We could simply make him disappear in the woods, Lord Ainz. It is a dangerous place after all. Albedo tells him. First, why are you still calling me Lord? Didn't I tell you to stop doing that? Second, we took this job. If he were to disappear under our watch, it would make us look very bad and incompetent. We will trap that boy one way or another, and Taylar will tell him what he needs to know so he doesn't tell anyone else. We can decide what to do with him once this mission is over, and he is no longer our responsibility. Ainz tells her. I am sorry, Ainz. It is still hard for me to call your name like that when I feel I have been messing up so much. I will continue to try and remember. Albedo tells him. I know it is hard for you because of how you were created, Albedo, and you have been making great progress in a short time. I just want you to keep growing and learning. Don't fall back on old habits so easily or Taylar, and my lessons will be wasted. Ainz tells Albedo. So what should we do about Nfaria, Ainz? I believe Taylar knows spells that alter someone's memory. We could always make him forget who we are. Albedo tells him. While that could be one solution, I would prefer to just keep him indebted to us somehow. We could certainly use an alchemist from this world to make potions for us. If we can somehow get his grandmother as well, that would be the ideal situation, he says. We will stay vigilant and look for such a situation, Lord Ainz. Narberl says to them. We are almost back to the party now. I will tell Aura to send the wise king of the forest our way now. It should arrive a few minutes after we make it back to the party. It seems Taylar has handled the situation with Nfaria. We will discuss more about that when we have some time alone. Ainz tells them. As he finished up talking with Albedo and Narberl, they came out into the clearing Nfaria had said he could find his herbs at. He did still seem a little tense, but not nearly as much as he had earlier. Obviously, whatever Taylar said to him calmed him down, even if it was only just a little. We scouted the few hundred meters around us and found nothing. We should be all right to harvest your herbs, Nfaria. Ainz says. Thank you, Mr. Mammon. Or maybe he didn't calm down. Ainz sighs. They had only been collecting herbs for Nfaria for a couple minutes when Luckrut stopped dead in his tracks and started listening to the forest intently. What is it, Luckrut? Peter asks him. He has seen this before and knows Luckrut is picking up on something coming closer. Something big is coming, Peter. Luckrut responds. Is it the wise king of the forest? Nfaria asks the ranger. I can't tell exactly what it is, but it is big and moving in a serpentine pattern for some reason in this direction. He tells the boy. All of you head out of the forest and guard Nfaria. I will take care of whatever this is. Ainz says to them. Mr. Mammon, I know you are strong, but if it is the wise king of the forest, you will need some backup. Peter says to him. Don't worry about that, Peter. The three of us are staying as well. Taylar says to him and motions to the rest of their party. Normally, I would not agree to running away like this, but I believe after seeing what you three did to those ogres and goblins earlier, you can handle whatever is coming this way. Peter says, then starts getting the rest of the Swords of Darkness and Nfaria moving back towards Karn Village. Well, I can sense it coming now. So it is within 200 meters of us. It should be here in 20 seconds based on its movement pattern. I can't get a good look at it to see what kind of creature it is. Ainz tells everyone. What do you mean you could sense it, Lord Ainz? Narberl asks him. Oh, well, it is quite an explanation that we really don't have time for. The short version is I can sense anything that is alive or that can succumb to death is probably more accurate. Ainz tells them. That didn't help Narberl understand at all, but she wouldn't tell her lord that. She would ask for the long explanation when the time presented itself to her. While she was trying to figure out what Ainz was talking about, he caught a good look of the creature before it darted behind a tree. To say he was disappointed was an understatement. Albedo, in 7 seconds, pull out your shield and put it in front of my right shoulder. Ainz says to her. It almost sounded like he was depressed while he was saying it. Very well, my love. Albedo replies. After exactly 7 seconds, Albedo swiftly pulls out her shield and puts it right where Ainz told her to. The moment she got it into position, something slammed directly into it. The blow didn't move Albedo's shield. She was too strong for such a weak blow to do anything, but she wondered how Ainz knew exactly where the creature would attack. I can't believe the wise king of the forest is a fucking spiritual hamster. Talk about disappointing. Is there anything in this damn world that is actually worth my time? Ainz is almost shouting at this point. He can't believe the lowest level druid/wizard familiar in all of Yggdrasil ended up being the wise king of the forest. Once a caster could use tier 3 magic, they abandoned this familiar and got a more powerful one because this one would never get as strong as any of the other familiars one could choose. Especially a druid, they were essentially a one-person army in Yggdrasil, which is why Ainz was still a little skeptical about Dine being a druid. It didn't seem like he connected with animals at all. He certainly wasn't a caster-type druid like Mare based on what he saw. He must be this world's version of a druid, which had Ainz very disappointed. You did well to block my attack, warrior. The second one will not be so easy. Leave my forest or suffer the consequences, the hamster says to them in the most intimidating voice it can muster. It is standing on its back, 2 legs at about 10 feet tall. It is covered in a shadow at the moment, and the only things visible for anyone to see are its eyes and runes on its chest that are both glowing blue. How did you know where it would attack Ainz? Albedo asks him. This creature is a spiritual hamster, a low-level familiar in Yggdrasil. Its attack pattern is very basic and predictable. If it would stop talking and attack again, it would try to slash me with its tail from my right shoulder to my left hip, and if that didn't do a fatal blow or mortally wound me, it would try to pierce directly through my heart with its third attack. Ainz explains. Even the hamster is stunned that he knew its attack pattern. It wondered how this warrior knew so much about him. He was the only one of his kind that he was aware of. You know much about me, warrior. Do you know of my race? The hamster asks. Yeah, I know about you, hamster. Ainz says. What is this hamster you speak of, warrior? That is what kind of race you are, a spiritual hamster. You are the only one I have encountered thus far. I have no idea why I am explaining anything to a hamster. Ainz says, frustration very evident in his voice. Then I shall defeat you and get the answers I desire from you, the hamster exclaims. I don't have time for this nonsense. Aura of Despair, Level 1. As Ainz finishes using his skill, the hamster falls over on its back and begins to shake in fear. You are nothing more than an animal. Anything higher than that, and you probably would have died. Ainz says, still very disappointed. I will serve you for however long you need, Master, the hamster says to him. The wise king of the forest might be useful to me. I suppose I should give you a name then, huh? Well, let's not think too deeply about this. From now on, you will be known as Hammy. Ainz says. He wasn't very good at naming things to begin with, but didn't think this creature deserved much thought on his name. Short and simple was the way to go here. Hammy shall serve you faithfully, my lord. Hammy says to Ainz. Well, isn't he just adorable? Taylar says. You're kidding, right? It's a hamster, Taylar. Ainz says. You may be right, but it is a giant hamster. His fur is very soft. No wonder Aura wanted to make a blanket out of him. Taylar says that makes Hammy a little uncomfortable knowing someone had already planned to turn him into a blanket. We have all sorts of legendary creatures in Nazarick, and you get attached to a hamster. Ainz laughs. Of all the things for her to think is adorable, it is this weak-ass hamster. Well, he would feel like an idiot riding this thing and figured as long as someone in their party was on it, it would show their power. Why don't you use him as your mount then, Taylar? It will show everyone we tamed the wise king of the forest. Ainz suggests. I like that, Ainz. All that walking got me tired anyway. Let's go, Hammy. Mama needs a ride back to the village, she says happily as can be. She mounts up on Hammy and the party heads towards Karn village. They needed to let everyone know the threat was over and they could get back to collecting Nfaria's herbs. Once they got into the clearing, everyone could see Taylar on top of the giant magical creature. Aye, is that TT the wise king of TT the forest? Nfaria asks. They could all see the silver fur of the wise king of the forest as it emerged from the trees. The swords of darkness gathered around Nfaria, shocked expressions on their faces as they all took a step back with weapons raised. Though it had cute round green eyes, its massive body was still an intimidating sight, and it was only natural that they would be wary on behalf of the client they were escorting. Don't worry, everyone. I have tamed this creature. It will not harm any of you. Ainz says to them, "It is as my lord has said. Hammy is my lord's faithful servant and will not bring any harm or inconvenience to any of you." Hammy says to them, "So this is the wise king of the forest. It's unbelievable. What a majestic beast." Ninya says. Ainz looked back and forth between Ninya and the wise king of the forest, checking to see if Ninya was making fun of him, but Ninya seemed to be dead serious. Did she really believe this was a majestic beast? Ainz thinks. Wow, the wise king of the forest, so the legends really were true. I can feel its mighty presence just standing before it. I can't believe you could tame such a beast. Dine gasped. Did he just say mighty presence? Ainz thinks to himself. If we had encountered him, we would have been killed for sure. I expected nothing less of you, Mr. Mallman. Amazing work as always. Peter praises. At first, Ainz thought they were making fun of him, but quickly realized they were all deadly serious. Even if the hamster was giant, it still didn't feel powerful at all to Ainz. He guessed it was a good thing, though. It would certainly help raise their names if silver-ranked adventurers were reacting like this to the creature. Yes, he is very cute, don't you think, everyone? Taylar asks, sitting atop his back petting his fur. As everyone agreed with Taylar, Ainz could only stand there and shake his head. How in the world did it turn into this? From wise king of the forest to cute hamster. At least I don't have to ride him, he thinks. But if you take him away, won't the other monsters attack Enri? I mean Karn Village, because he's not there to scare them off anymore. Enri asks Ainz. Ainz raised his chin to indicate the wise king of the forest. It got the message and said, well, the balance of power in the forest is now in chaos. Even if Hammy was there, Hammy would not be able to guarantee their safety by any means. No way, Enri says. Ainz did not comfort the shocked Nfaria. He merely smiled inside. This boy seemed to care about only two things, alchemy and Enri. It would be very easy to get this boy to serve him. His grandmother seemed like another story. He didn't learn much about her, but from what he could learn, she seemed a lot tougher to deal with than Nfaria. After talking to the villagers, I believe someone is already looking after this place in the wise king of the forest's place now in Nfaria. Ainz says to him, I suppose you are right, Mr. Mallman. I wish I could protect ENR, I mean Karn Village too, but I'm just an alchemist. Nfaria says with a sad tone. There are ways for you to protect the people you care about, even if you are just an alchemist, Nfaria. When we get some time later tonight, maybe we could discuss those scenarios. Ainz says to him, I would love to learn about those opportunities, Mr. Mallman. Nfaria exclaims, Good, we will talk later then. For now, we need to get to harvesting your herbs. We are running out of daylight, and Hammy here says he knows a couple of places where your herbs grow in abundance. Ainz tells them, It is as my lord says. I know of the plants you seek and the best places to get them from. Hammy tells Nfaria. After that brief exchange, they all head back into the forest to begin harvesting Nfaria's herbs. It took a lot shorter than usual with the help of the wise king of the forest, and the haul was way more than Nfaria usually brought home. He guessed they probably got 10 times the amount he normally was able to gather. After their harvesting, it was getting late, so they decided to spend the night in Karn Village and would set off first light the next day. The rest of their time in Karn Village was uneventful, and they headed back towards Irantil at sunrise. The entire group woke up just before sunrise. Well, everyone but Ainz, he still kept watch at night, even inside the village. It wasn't that he didn't trust the security, he just figured since he hadn't been able to sleep, he might as well do something. They wanted to head out as early as possible for the return journey. They weren't going to spend a night camping as they did on the way here. They were going to take the road this time and push through to Irantil. They would arrive a little late in the evening, but they all wanted a real bed to sleep in. No one in Ainz's party had complained the whole trip about the sleeping arrangements, but it certainly wasn't because it was a pleasant experience. For Narbril Gamma, getting back to Nazarick meant she could finally relax for even a moment. She was currently responsible for the last two Supreme Beings and Overseer Albedo, who would someday also be a Queen of Nazarick. She couldn't afford to let her guard down for one moment. If anything happened to any of them on her watch, she would never be able to live with herself. Narbrel Gamma was of the same mind as many in Nazarick. They believed if Lord Ainz was to take anyone from Nazarick as a bride other than Lady Taylar, Overseer Albedo was the perfect one for that choice in Narbrel's mind. She was the head of all the Floor Guardians. She was a level 100 warrior who could protect either supreme being, and she also possessed all the skills necessary to be the perfect bride for Lord Ainz. There were a few in Nazarick who believed Shaltir Blood Fallen would be a better option for Lord Ainz-like solution, but there wasn't many who held that same sentiment. Narbrel thought maybe that was because all the time Albedo had been spending with the maids. Narbrel had even spent time with Albedo before this journey like all the other members of the Pleiades. It was obvious she was putting in a real effort to learn to rule Nazarick, and she was rewarded with a loyalty from the maids and Pleiades that was similar to their loyalty to the Supreme Ones. For Ainz, Taylar, and Albedo, it meant finally getting a good night's sleep. None of them had gotten one this whole trip, even if it was just a couple days. Taylar didn't mind sleeping with Albedo. They had already done much more than just that, but it just wasn't the same as being next to Ainz. Albedo felt the exact same way as Taylar. It would be nice to sleep in that gigantic, comfy bed in Nazarick. She couldn't wait for this mission to be over. Ainz hadn't told any of them this, but he hadn't slept at all since they started this journey. The first night sleeping with Taylar was nerve-wracking for him. When Albedo eventually joined them, he was pretty comfortable with the idea. Now, he can't even sleep without one of them next to him. As Taylar made her way out of her tent with Albedo behind her, and she saw Ainz and Narbrel waiting for them, she finally voiced what they were all thinking. Okay, I think from now on we need to do missions alone. Not being able to sleep next to you is making me not be able to rest well. No offense, Albedo. Taylar says. None taken, Taylar. I completely agree, the succubus says. Well, I haven't been able to sleep at all since this started, so I understand how you feel. I wasn't going to say anything because I didn't want to complain, but since everyone else feels the same, I guess I will too. Ainz says. Well, good. Now that is settled. Let's get a move on. I want to sleep in a real bed tonight with my body pillow, Taylar says. After their morning exchange, they all started getting things together to leave. It didn't take long to prepare. They had done most of the preparations last night before heading to bed. Their journey back to Irantal was a lot less exciting than the journey to Karn village. They arrived back in Irantal late in the evening. Ainz was a little worried about Taylar riding Hammy into the city. He was glad to see there weren't many people in the streets when they arrived. The few people he did see, he noticed were whispering to each other while staring at Taylar. When he focused and listened to what they were saying, he was a little shocked. He had expected to hear people making fun of her for riding on a giant hamster, but they all had the exact opposite to say. All of them were words of praise or fear at people capable of taming such a majestic beast. He couldn't believe it at first. Then he remembered what everyone said of Hammy when he first brought him out of the woods. It seems the sentiments the Swords of Darkness and Nfaria showed when Ainz first introduced Hammy was true of everyone, at least in the city. After they had walked into town for a bit, they arrived at the town square where they would need to depart for a while. Ainz and company needed to head to the guild to register Hammy as a magical creature, and the Swords of Darkness had offered to help Nfaria unload. Peter insisted on doing this because he felt they had done nothing the whole trip and didn't feel right taking half the money for doing nothing. They agreed Ainz, Taylar, Albedo, and Narbrel would meet them once the registration was complete to pick up their money and bonus Nfaria was including for having such a great harvest. Ainz certainly was glad Taylar was riding Hammy. He knew he would feel stupid riding a giant hamster through town, but she seemed to be enjoying it thoroughly. He was pretty sure she hadn't stopped petting Hammy's head since she mounted him this morning. Registering Hammy at the guild turned out to be a lot of paperwork. Ainz was glad Taylar was handling it for them. It had taken them over an hour to fill out all the paperwork and get everything straightened out. Once they finally left the guild, they ran into someone they didn't expect. Oh, you must be the adventurers my grandson hired to take him to Karn village, Lizzie says to them. I'm sorry, who are you? Ainz says, based on her greeting, he was sure who she was, but didn't want to give that away. Oh, right. Sorry about that. I am Lizzie Berar. Nfaria is my grandson. Lizzie says. No need to apologize, Ms. Lizzie. Yes, we are some of the adventurers your grandson hired. I am Maman. This is Bella, Ariel, and Nabe. Ainz motions to the 3 women with him. How did you know we were the adventurers your grandson hired? That is quite simple. No one has armor like you are wearing, and he told me who he was hiring before he left. I'm pretty sure there isn't another adventurer in town wearing your exact full plate with 3 beautiful women with him. Lizzie says to Ainz. I guess that makes sense. Ainz says, by the way, what is that creature Bella is riding? Lizzie asks them. That is the wise king of the forest, Hammy. Ainz tells her. WW what? This is the legendary wise king of the forest. Lizzie yells. Everyone within a block just heard her scream that. Yes, it is. Maman tamed it when we went into the woods to harvest Nfaria's herbs, and it tried to attack us. Taylar tells Lizzie. Yes, it is as my lord and lady have said. This one is Hammy. It is a pleasure to meet you, Hammy tells Lizzie. Holy shit, these people tamed the wise king of the forest. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea to send Nfaria to learn of those potions they had. Lizzie thinks to herself. I see. So, where's my grandson now? She asks. He went ahead to the shop to start unloading the herbs while we registered Hammy at the guild. We are actually on our way over to collect our payment right now. Ainz tells her. Shall we go together then? I love talking to adventurers. Lizzie says to Ainz. Sure, lead the way. Ainz says. I bet you do. Taylar says at the same time. Lizzie isn't quite sure what Bella means by that, but Bella is certainly eyeing her with caution, it seems. They all head off for the shop with Lizzie leading the way for them. Back at Lizzie and Nfaria's shop. Nfaria drove the wagon straight to the back of the shop. He jumped down, pulled out a key, and grabbed his magical lantern. Once he unlocked the door, he hung the lantern on the hook on the wall to illuminate the storeroom. All right, all the herbs will go in here if I could trouble you for some help. Nfaria says. Not a problem, Nfaria. That is why we accompanied you after all. Peter tells him. The group started to unload the wagon full of herb bundles into the storeroom for Nfaria. Since there was 5 of them working together, it only took a few minutes to get everything in the storeroom. When they finished, Nfaria was a little surprised his grandmother hadn't heard them and come in the back yet. She might be old, but she still had her wits about her. I wonder if something took her out of the house? She should have been here by now, he thinks. Nfaria sees that the swords of darkness look a little sweaty from carrying all the herbs and decides to offer them a drink. Maman and company still weren't back yet, so they had a few minutes to kill at least. I appreciate all the help, guys. Do you want to come in and have a cool drink while we wait for the others to arrive? Nfaria asks them. That sounds like a great idea. Luckrat says to Nfaria. Please come this way then, he responds. Right as Nfaria is about to lead them into the house, the door on the opposite side of the room opens. Through it steps a pretty girl, but she has a very unnerving look on her face, like a predator that has found its prey. Heal Nfaria. Welcome back. I've been pretty worried about you, you know? I thought someone kidnapped you. I've been waiting here for a couple days now, the woman says to him. WW who are YYU? Nfaria asks. Wait, you don't know her Nfaria? Peter asks him. Peter was kind of shocked by this. The tone this woman was using with Nfaria sure made it seem like she knew him. Of course not. I came to kidnap Nfaria. I thought someone beat me to it. That is why I was worried since no one can cast the Tier 7 spell Undead Army. I need you to be my magic item Nfaria, the woman says to them. The swords of darkness sensed the air of malice radiating from the girl, and they immediately drew their weapons. Although everyone else was in a combat stance, the girl looked like she was getting ready to take a stroll in the park. Ninya, take Nfaria and get out of here now. She is only going on like this because she knows she can kill us, Peter says to the mage. Oh, that is so touching. I might just shed a tear, sorry, but I can't let you escape. That would cause me more trouble than you are worth, the woman says to them. As Ninya and Nfaria are about to turn and run, they hear a voice come from behind them. You are playing around too much, Clementine, Khajiit says to her. What? Come on, Khajiit. I was just buying time so you could make sure no one heard them scream right. You can at least leave one for me to play with, Clementine tells the necromancer. Fine, but don't have too much fun. We still have things to do tonight, Khajiit says. Good now, since there is nowhere for you to run to now. Let's have us some fun, Clementine tells them as a sadistic smile spreads across her face. About an hour later at the shop. As Lizzie, Ainz, and company approached the shop, Ainz could sense something was off. It was far too quiet and dark for Nfaria and the Swords of Darkness to be here. That is when he noticed the smell of death in the air inside the building. Nabe, guard Ms. Lizzie. Ariel and Bella, go around to the back. I will go in the front. Something isn't right here. Ainz says to everyone. WW, what is going on, Mr. Mammon? Lizzie asks. Something is off. Let us check it out before you come in. Ainz says to her. Ainz pulls out his greatswords as Albedo and Taylar make their way around the back of the shop. When they get around the back, they can see the empty cart sitting out back. They at least were here long enough to finish unloading the cart. Ainz kicks in the front door the same time Albedo and Taylar make their way in the back door. Taylar and Albedo see the scene of carnage before Ainz ever makes it to the back of the shop. All the members of the Swords of Darkness are lying on the ground in pools of their own blood. Ninya is the only exception to this as Taylar sees her body leaning up against the wall. She was obviously tortured, unlike the others who seemed to have only one puncture straight through their throats. Neither of them saw Nfaria's body amongst them. As Taylar was about to go check Dine's body, the three members lying on the ground started to stand up. Seems someone turned them into zombies, Taylar says to Albedo. She reaches behind her and pulls out one of her wakizashi. The one she pulled out was Shininga Sutta, also known as the Shining Star. It was one of her two specifically designed wakizashis for her. This one was designed to increase her healing and holy magic as well as kill undead. Her second wakizashi was called Midanido Sutta, or the Midnight Star. It was designed to give her high resistance to unholy magic and kill creatures of the night like werewolves and vampires. She normally wielded both weapons, but there was no reason to use them yet in this world. She was by no means a two-weapon fighter, but her battle cleric levels and spells made her the equivalent of a warrior around level 50. Not strong at all by Yggdrasil standards, but more than enough for anything they had come across in this world so far. She quickly and precisely drove the tip of her swords through the base of each zombie's neck before they could even stand. As she was finishing off Lukrut, Ainz came around the corner and saw the scene. Well, this is certainly going to hinder the spreading of our names. Everything we did on that trip might as well never happened. Ainz sighs. Maybe not Ainz. This would be a perfect opportunity for me to try my special skill. We could see if these humans can get stronger if they are simply a different race. We could also get more agents of Nazarick if she is willing to accept. Taylar points to the body of Ninya. Why give her the choice? Don't you think asking Peter, their leader, would be a better option? Plus, the other three were turned into undead. Can you even bring them back to life after that? Ainz asks. No, she was hiding being a woman for some reason. After I am done with them, there will be no way for her to hide that she is a woman. About them being undead, if it works as it did in Yggdrasil, then it will be fine. All of my resurrection magic worked on everything in Yggdrasil, even undead, after I put my 5th level into Angel of Life. I don't see a reason it wouldn't still work. All of my other abilities, feats, and spells work as they did in Yggdrasil. I'm 99% certain that if someone like Shaltir Bloodfallen or Yuri Alpha were to die, I would only need to cast True Resurrection on them to bring them back. Taylar tells him. Very well, I will leave that up to your discretion. Make sure they understand they will be serving Nazarick if you grant them this miracle. Ainz tells Taylar. That is if my special skill still functions like it did in Yggdrasil. Taylar tells him. Since the members of Swords of Darkness were now dead, they could be put in Taylar's storage. She wanted to do this as soon as possible, but they didn't mention the Swords of Darkness to Lizzie. It would be better if no one knew they died at all if they accepted Taylar's offer. Okay, I am done for now. Go get Nfaria's grandmother. We need to let her see the gravity of the situation her grandson has got into. This will be the perfect opportunity to trap her with Nfaria. Just let me do the talking this time, love. Taylar says to Ainz. It seems you have a plan for all of this, so I will follow your lead. Ainz says. Albedo is just standing behind Taylar, nodding her head up and down. She couldn't wait to see how Taylar was going to turn the situation to the advantage of Nazarick. She wasn't too keen on the idea of making those weak Swords of Darkness agents of Nazarick, but she would need to wait to see Taylar's plans before making a real decision on the matter. Ainz makes his way to the front to get Narbril and Lizzie. Narbril is standing there as vigilant as ever. Lizzie looks incredibly nervous and anxious. Is everything all right, WW, with Nfaria? Lizzie asks. It seems like someone has taken him, Ms. Lizzie. We are searching for clues right now. Maybe you could help by looking around inside with us. Ainz asks her. As Ainz leads her through the shop, Lizzie is looking all around for clues. She doesn't see anything out of place or missing at all. When they get to the storeroom and she sees all the blood, she starts freaking out. Is this Aeol Nfaria's BB blood? No, this is from the adventurers who were helping him unload. We haven't found any bodies, so they are either on the verge of death or the culprits took their bodies with them. Although, I'm not really sure why they would take them if they were dead, so I believe they are just being held captive. Taylar says to Lizzie. I thought Heon Lizzie is cut off by Taylar. We do not have time for a discussion. Based on what I see here, the longer we wait, the more unlikely it is that we will find Nfaria or figure out why he was taken. Did you notice anything out of place, Lizzie? She asks. No, nothing is missing or gone. Something's back here, tipped over like a fight happened, but everything else is right where it should be, she tells Taylar. Then it's obvious they took Nfaria specifically. She says and ponders on it a bit. Why would someone kidnap Nfaria? He is just a pot. Taylar cuts her off again. His talent. He can use any magic item, can't he? Taylar asks Lizzie. Yes, Nfaria has that talent. What magic item could possibly lead to someone needing to kidnap him? Lizzie asks. I'm not sure. Could you go look around the rest of the shop and upstairs in the home portion of the building for anything else? I'm going to try and find him using my magic, and I need to concentrate. Taylar tells her. Sure, Lizzie says and starts heading towards the stairs up to where she and Nfaria live. Okay, now that she is gone, I am going to try something. In Yggdrasil, I possessed a ton of spells that were virtually useless except for in specific scenarios. Those spells have changed since then and have become my most useful ones. Spells like Comprehend Languages, Tongues, Zone of Truth, Clairaudience/Clairvoyance, etc. None of the Swords of Darkness had their guild plates on them when I was looking over their bodies, so I am going to try Tier 8 Discern Location on Ninya's guild plate. It should give us an exact location of the object, even if it is behind a barrier of some kind, unless that barrier is super tier magic or higher. Taylar says to them. Lady Taylar, is there really magic more powerful than super tier magic? Narbril asks her. It is very rare, but yes, it does exist. In fact, Ainz and I plundered a world item right before we were transported here from Seraphim that contains a summoning spell higher than super tier, she replies to Narbril. Thinking about destroying the guild and taking all their loot before shutdown always brought a smile to Taylar's face, and this was no exception. Lady Taylar, you and Lord Ainz destroyed Seraphim? Was that not the group of beings who lead the attack on Nazarick that reached the 8th floor? Narbril asks her. Correct on both accounts, Narbril. I would love to tell you the story, but we don't have time at the moment. Come find me later when this is over if you wish to hear it. Taylar tells Narbril. I very much look forward to it, Lady Taylar. Narbril replies. Discern location, Ninya's guild plate. As Taylar casts her spell, she instantly gets a distance in kilometers the plate is away from her, a general description of the area it is in, and the condition of the item. From the description and distance I'm getting, I believe he is in the Irantal graveyard, she says. Greater scrying. As Taylar casts another spell, a screen appears on the table in front of them. It shows the front of what looks like a mausoleum. Behind one of the pillars is a blonde woman attempting to hide from sight. She slowly starts to bring her hands together, and the screen begins to zoom out a little at a time. After just a few seconds, she sees a group of men standing just off to the side and in front of the mausoleum. They seem to be surrounding one man, and it looks like they're saying something. Clairaudience/clairvoyance. I can't understand that language. That is odd. I have comprehend language active already. Taylar says. Can you zoom in on that man in the middle, Taylar? Ainz asks her. Taylar moves her hands around and centers the screen on Khajiit. Ainz notices the jewel in his hand and listens to their words intently. It is no wonder you don't know that language. It is not something you can learn from a spell. That is the dark chant. It is the language of death. I'm surprised humans can speak it without dying. They seem to be using the jewel of hell to conduct a ritual. They are charging the jewel with negative energy. Ainz tells everyone. The jewel of hell? Wouldn't that bring forth devils and demons, not undead? Taylar asks Ainz. No, Hel, with one L, the Norse goddess of death, that was a legendary class item in Yggdrasil. You could store excess negative energy in it and use it to cast ray of negative energy, drain levels from people, or summon skeletal dragons in Yggdrasil. The most you could summon was 3, but once you hit level 80, they weren't much more than fodder, so people usually discarded that item. I used to. Have one myself, it is probably somewhere in the treasury. Also, devils come from hell. Demons come from the abyss. Assuming it works here like it did in Yggdrasil. Ainz tells her. I still don't see Nfaria, though. Let me take a look inside that mausoleum. Taylar moves the screen back to the mausoleum and zoom in until she can see the inside. When she finally gets a picture of the inside, she can see Nfaria standing in the center of a pentagram. He is wearing a white ceremonial robe with a silver jeweled crown on his head. She notices there is blood coming from his closed eyelids, and he is surrounded by the undead. They are nothing more than low-level skeletons and zombies, but there are thousands of them she can see. Seems whatever that crown is on his head has some nasty side effects. Since we know where he is now, why don't you bring Lizzie in here and we can talk about what she is willing to pay to get her grandson back? Taylar says. I will retrieve the moth, Lady Taylar. Narbril says to her. As Narbril makes her way towards where Lizzie went, Taylar lets out a sigh. She ends the greater scrying spell and voices her frustration. Well, those might be low-level undead, but it will take us an eternity to get through that army if we are going to use our abilities as we are now. You can use turn undead, right, Taylar? Ainz asks her. Yes, but that is not something I can limit my power on. If I use turn undead, it will be the power of a level 100 cleric, she tells him. That is fine. If someone sees you, we can just tell them you are helped by your weapon, and it is a national treasure of our country. Ainz says. You are getting quite good at making up excuses, hee. Taylar laughs. Well, it's not like it's a lie. Anything you wear or wield would be considered a national treasure of Nazarick by anyone who calls it home, and one of your weapons is designed to specifically kill the undead. Ainz says. Taylar was about to say something else, but Lizzie finally arrived in the back. We have found your grandson, Lizzie. He is currently in the graveyard of Irantal, surrounded by an army of undead. Taylar tells her. An army of the undead? Lizzie yells. Yes, luckily for you, the only people capable of helping you get your grandson back are right here in your shop. So the question is, what are you willing to pay to get your grandson back? Taylar says to her. What price are you asking FF for? Lizzie asks. That's easy. Everything you have. Taylar tells the stunned woman. Everything? Are you SS some kind of devil? She says. No, I am no devil. I simply need this much from you because I dislike people who lie to me. Your grandson lied to us 4 times during our short trip, and you lied to us 2 times in the first minute after we met you. I know you knew who we were because you sent your grandson to hire us, not him. I also know you wanted to talk to us because you want to know about our potions, not because you like talking to adventurers. Is your grandson not worth it to you, Ms. Berar? She says to the still stunned woman. Fine, I will give you everything. Just return Nfaria to me, she says to them. Very well, it is a deal. When we leave here, head over to the guild and tell them to prepare for an army of the dead to come out of the graveyard. We will head there and get your grandson, Taylar says. They make the last of their preparations and head towards the graveyard of Irantal. This was a place which occupied roughly a quarter of Irantal's outer ring, which was also most of the western quadrant. It was Irantal's communal cemetery. While other cities had their own graveyards, none of them were as big as this one. This was in order to suppress the spawning of the undead. Although many things were unclear about the spontaneous existence of the undead, the basic idea was those vile creatures frequently spawned from the places where the living came to an end. Of these, people who died sudden, violent deaths and the dead who were not properly revered had the highest chance of coming back to unlife. Therefore, battlefields and ruins tended to be infested by the undead. Since Irantal was very close to the Empire and consequently its battlefields, it required a huge graveyard, a place where remains could receive the proper final rites and give them the least likely chance of turning into an undead. In this aspect, the neighboring country, the Empire, also adhered to their common agreement to respect the dead. Though they slaughtered each other, they both saw the undead that attacked the living as their common enemy. It was the opinion of every living race in this world that the undead was here to kill the living and nothing else. In addition, there was another problem with the undead. If left unattended, the undead spawned more powerful undead. This was why the city guards and adventurers patrolled the graveyards day and night to exterminate the weaker undead as soon as possible. A wall surrounded the graveyard. This wall was the boundary between the living and dead. While it was only 4 meters tall and could not compare to the city walls, it was wide enough for people to walk on top of it. The large doors set into its side were sturdy and could not be easily breached. All this was in order to ward against the undead that spawned in the graveyard. There were staircases to the left and right of the doors, and watchtowers along the length of the wall. The guards took turns observing the graveyard below them as they yawned from the watchtowers, in shifts of 5 men at a time. The graveyard was lined with sconces enchanted with continual light spells, so there was ample lighting despite it being nighttime. Still, there were many shadowy places, and visibility was even worse in those places blocked by tombstones. A spear-wielding guard absent-mindedly looked out to the graveyard and said to his yawning colleague, "Tonight's quite peaceful too," he says to his partner. "Yup, there were only 5 skeletons, 3 zombies earlier, right? That seems a lot less compared to what we normally get," he replies. Could it be the souls of the dead were called back by the 4 gods? That would be pretty lucky for us if it were true. The other guards were drawn in by the topic and began speaking up. "Well, if it's just skeletons and zombies, we can deal with them. Still, it's a pain to take out skeletons with a spear, and there are much worse undead than skeletons and zombies," the new guard says to them. "I think the most troublesome ones are the whites," the first guard replies. "For me, it's the skeleton centipedes. I'd be dead by now if the adventurers standing guard nearby didn't chase them away from me." Skeleton centipedes? I heard that the powerful undead only show up when you let the weak ones get away. So all you need to do is kill them all when they're weak and the strong undead won't appear. Still, when I think about it, I've got a bad feeling about the lack of undead right now. Why do you say that? I just feel like we might have missed something out during our watches. There normally isn't an abundance of undead in the cemetery, but the numbers have never been this low. You're thinking too much. There aren't that many undead normally. They say that they only pop up frequently when they bury the corpses of the people who died while fighting the Empire. So on the flip side, this is what happens when there aren't any big wars, right? The soldiers nodded to each other in agreement. They had buried human corpses in their own villages, but they had never heard of the undead appearing that often. The guard who thought there was too little undead around still couldn't bring himself to believe that. Something was definitely going on in the graveyard in his mind. So that means the Catsaplanes must be pretty insane. I can't imagine the number of undead that spawns on that killing field. Yeah, didn't they say something about an unimaginably strong undead creature showing up? It was a place where the Empire and the Kingdom clashed in fierce battles. It was also a place famous for the proliferation of its undead. Adventurers hired by the Kingdom and Imperial Knights would often go there to hunt down the undead. This task was important enough that the Empire and Kingdom Support Corps had built small towns nearby to support their personnel. Aihi. A guard who was about to speak suddenly shut his mouth. He was pretty sure he just heard something coming from the graveyard. Hey, why did you dash? Quiet. I think I hear something coming from the graveyard, he says. They all quit talking and listened intently to their surroundings. After a moment, one of them spoke up. I don't hear anything, but it smells like dirt pretty bad. Didn't they just have a bunch of funerals the last 2 days? It is probably from that, he says to them. I don't think that is the reason. Look. One of the guards points off in the distance. Everyone turns to look and sees 4 figures running towards the gate as fast as they can. It is odd to see a group of 4 because they went out in groups of 10 to hunt the dead. When they could make out their shouting, they see hundreds of undead following the group. Open the gate now. Hurry up, damn it, the group is yelling. Everyone sees the hundreds of undead that are chasing the group of 4 guards. They hurry down the steps and open the gates for the fleeing guards. As the guards make it through, they quickly yell. Close the damn gate. There is an entire army of the dead headed this way, the man says, completely out of breath. What happened to the rest of your group? The guard captain asks the man. TT, they were eaten BB by the DD dead, he stammers out. Head up those steps and get a good look at the numbers headed this way, the captain says to them. The guard with the spear quickly runs back up the steps and glances back over the graveyard. Their first estimate of a couple hundred undead was definitely off by a lot. The guard was guessing there was over 1,000 undead coming towards the gate right now. He saw more than just skeletons and zombies. He noticed his personally most feared undead, the White, along with ghouls, ghasts, and corrupted undead. When he relayed this information to the rest of the guards, they all began to shiver thinking of the army headed this way. Because the graveyard was surrounded by a wall, the undead could not attack the commoners as long as the wall held out. However, even if they mobilized all their guards, it was doubtful whether they could fend off such a massive horde of the undead. The guards were essentially normal citizens, and they had no confidence in wiping out these undead. In addition, some undead could turn their slain victims into others of their own kind. If things went poorly, the guards might end up becoming undead themselves and attacking their comrades. While they had not seen any flying undead yet, the guards had a bad feeling that if they did not wipe them all out, a flying undead creature or something very powerful, like the newly spawned undead in the Catsaplane, Death Knight, would end up spawning sooner or later. You two, go get the guards from the other doors to come help with this. You, run to the barracks and grab everyone there to come help. Everyone else, grab a weapon and get on the wall to hold back that horde until help can arrive. The captain issues orders to the rest of his men. Despite their fear, the men quickly sprang into action. It helped their captain had not lost his composure after learning of the undead army coming this way, and it kept his men relatively calm even if they were still terrified. As they used their weapons to keep the horde from overtaking the wall, they could all see they needed some help quick. The number of undead were only growing rapidly, and even if they had no intelligence, they would eventually just pile up high enough to flow over the wall. Just as it looked like they might be overrun, the backup from the barracks arrived, and they slowly started whittling down their numbers. It seemed like they would actually make it through this and hold off an entire army of the dead. Just when hope was returning to the guards, a scream pierced through the air. "HH, help me," a guard screams. Everyone looks over to see a slimy pink intestine wrapped around his neck. They follow the intestine and see a skeleton wrapped in multiple intestines amongst the normal skeletons. None of the guards had ever seen this type of undead before, but when the captain noticed it, he shouted out its name. What in the world is a morgue doing here? As he finishes stuttering that out, the guard is pulled off the wall and the morgue starts eating him alive. The screams of the guard being eaten make everyone else freeze in place, and the undead begins overwhelming the wall. The captain notices this and quickly gives the order to retreat. There was nothing they could do about the undead. They weren't real soldiers after all. "Everyone, fall back now. Get off the wall, we need to regroup," he yells to everyone. As they all run back down the stairs, they are greeted by a gigantic magical beast. Its large round eyes seem to shine with wisdom. There were 3 people walking next to it on either side, and 1 person mounted on it. A tall warrior in black full plate, a beautiful woman in what looked like off-white full plate without a helmet, a beautiful woman wearing a brown cloak, and what looked like robes underneath it, and Top the magical beast was a beautiful woman with blonde hair and green eyes who looked like she was wearing a dress of some sort with 2 short swords crossed behind her back down at her waist. It didn't look like she was ready for combat at all except the 2 swords she had with her. Like all the guards had thought when looking at them, all these women were insanely beautiful. They looked like 3 princesses with their bodyguard to everyone standing there. At first, they were relieved to see some adventurers, but when they spotted the copper plates on their necks, the relief vanished. "I am Mammon. This is Bella, Ariel, Nabe, and Hammy. We are here to deal with the undead. Open the gates," Ainz yells. "Hey, are you crazy? There is an army of the undead about to overrun this gate. What can a copper plate do against an army of the dead?" the captain yells. Ainz points just above the wall and tells the guards, "Why don't you have a look for yourselves?" As the guards turn around, they see what looks like a 30-foot-tall earth elemental, but this elemental is made up of skeletons and zombies. A necromental, an undead formed from the remains of defeated skeletons and zombies if not purified quickly enough. Ainz informs them. As all the guards turn around at his words, he pulls out one of his greatswords and hurls it right at the head of the necromental. Everyone turns around quickly at the great speed he threw such a large weapon just to witness it pierce right through the undead's forehead and send it to the ground. "Now, open the gates," Ainz asks again. All the guards are just standing there dumbfounded. They had never seen such a display of pure power before, and it came from a copper plate nonetheless. Since no one answered Ainz, he just continued on himself. "Well, I guess it can't be helped then," he says. He plants his foot in the ground and springs up with all his might. He was sure he would be able to clear this wall after the jump from rear guard to next to Luckrut on their previous journey. "Come on, Hammy. What are you waiting for? Follow him," Taylar says to him. Albedo plants her foot in the ground and jumps over the wall just like Ainz did. Taylar stays on top of Hammy and has him climb the steps and jump down on the other side. Narberl just cast fly on herself and floated over the wall. The guards immediately heard the clashing of weapons and bone begin. After only what seemed like a few moments, the sound stopped and the graveyard became quiet again. They ran up the steps to look over the situation. Right as they reached the top of the stairs, a blinding flash of light went off in the graveyard. When they could refocus their eyes, they didn't see a single undead standing. They were all scattered all over the graveyard in piles of bones and flesh. "Who in the world were those people? No way are they just copper plates," one of the guards say. He said their names were Mammon, Ariel, Bella, and Nabe. No one who could cut through that horde so fast could only be a copper plate. They should be adamantite rank, right? "Legendary adventurers," the man with the spear says. "We may have just seen an adventure team of legends, no heroes," the captain says. On the other side of the wall, As Ainz is cutting a path straight through the army, he gives orders to everyone. Follow behind me. When we get in the center of the army, Taylar, use your turn undead ability. Once they arrive at what they believe to be the center of the army, Taylar pulls out her wakizashi, shining star, and uses her ability. Return to death, turn undead. A blinding flash of light spreads out from Taylar. When they all look around them, every undead they could see was nothing more than a pile of bones. It seemed turning undead in this world had a much larger area of effect than it did in Yggdrasil. Well, that was more effective than I thought it would be. Ainz says, "Yeah, I'm going to second that. I didn't think it would take out the entire army. There are just a couple hundred stragglers left after that." Taylar responds, "Well, it is better this way. I'm sure more adventurers, guards, and people like that will be here soon. We need to wrap this up quickly so they don't show up before we are done. I suppose I could buy us a little more time." Ainz says to her, "Create mid-tier undead, Jack the Ripper. Clean up the remaining undead in the area," he tells his new summon. It sprints off and begins decimating the remaining undead very quickly. Create low-tier undead, Wraith. Create low-tier undead, Wraith. Create low-tier undead, Lesser Vampire. Create low-tier undead, Lesser Vampire. As Ainz creates 4 low-level undead to buy them some time, he also gives them orders. Delay anyone trying to enter the graveyard. Try not to kill them if you can. Just scare them off for now. After 15 minutes, return to where you came from, he tells the newly summoned undead. The undead heads off towards the gate and is quickly out of sight. "All right, let's go," he says to everyone else. As they make their way forward, they come to the crest of a hill. They look down and see the ritual going on they witnessed earlier through greater scrying. It seems some of the men in the group around Khajiit has noticed them also. "Khajiit, some adventurers have made it through the undead," the creepy-looking guy says to him. "Thanks for your leader's name, dumbass." Ainz thinks to himself, "Don't you think it is much too nice a night for a ritual, Khajiit?" Ainz asks the man. The creepy guy standing next to him is startled that he was overheard. He didn't think there was any way someone could have heard him from so far away over the chanting. "I think I'll decide whether it is a good night for a ritual or not. Who are you anyway, and how did you make it through that army of undead?" Khajiit asks Ainz. "I'm an adventurer on a mission. I'm looking for Nfaria Berar. I'm sure you know who I am talking about." Ainz says to the necromancer, "You think you 4 can do anything to interrupt this ritual? You will die here like everyone else in the city." Khajiit says, "Ha ha 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 ha, sorry, I didn't mean to laugh at you. You just sound like every stereotypical villain ever. I'll make you an offer, how about that? I was just going to crush you because of the trouble you caused me with my plan, but you have also presented me with 2 new opportunities. In light of that, I will give you a one-time offer. Hand over the Jewel of Hell, Nfaria Berar, and swear undying fealty to me, and I shall grant your wish of becoming an Elder Lich. If you refuse, however, you will suffer an eternity of torment at my hands." Ainz offers the necromancer. "What would a warrior know about becoming an Elder Lich?" Khajiit says. "Is that your answer then?" Ainz asks. "Why would I accept an offer from a warrior who spouts nonsense about what he does not understand?" Khajiit replies to him. "Very well, I suggest you use your jewel and summon your 2 skeletal dragons, since it seems you didn't collect enough for the 3rd one. You and that woman hiding in the shadow over there like a scared little kitten will take the fall for this then," he says as he points towards the pillar they saw Clementine hiding behind while they were scrying on them. "Oh, you noticed me back here, did you? Big guy, you got some pretty good senses, if you could spot me," Clementine replies. "You have 10 seconds to act before I give the order to have all of you killed. I would spend those last 10 seconds wisely." Ainz says to them, "You think you can beat me? There is almost no one in this world who can defeat Lady Clementine, you spoiled rich boy. You think some copperplate is just going to be able to take me out?" She says Ainz can tell he has pissed her off greatly, but she was still running out of time. 6 seconds, Ainz says. "Fine, if you wish to die then, so be it." Khajiit says. "Orb of Death." As he finishes saying that, the jewel begins to pulse like a heart, and Ainz can make out two skeletal dragons descending from the sky. Taylar, do you wish to get in some melee combat training with that woman? Ainz asks her. No, I want to get home as soon as possible, and I'm sure there will be plenty of talking and paperwork after this incident. Let us just get this over with quickly, she tells Ainz. Very well, Albedo. Yes, my love, she replies. Crush that woman, but leave her identifiable. They need a body to see, so they have someone to pin this on. Narbril Gamma, show this wannabe necromancer and his pitiful dragons the power of Nazarick, he orders the ladies. By your command, Albedo says. Yes, Lord Ainz, Narbril says to him. Narbril grabbed at her shoulder and pulled off her brown cloak. Rejoice, mere tool. You have the honor of doing battle with Narbril Gamma, one of the battle maids of the Pleiades who are the loyal servants of Lord Ainz Gown, the absolute ruler of the great tomb of Nazarick. Her equipment was completely different. She now wore gauntlets and greaves of gold, silver, and black metal, as well as a set of maid-themed armor which looked like it had come out of a manga. In place of a helmet, she wore a maid's white-brimmed headdress. In her hands, she held a staff of gold inlaid with silver. Player-made items in Yggdrasil could have their abilities changed by using data crystals. Narbril's robe had a quick-change crystal embedded in it, so she could directly swap out her gear for a set of predetermined equipment without having to waste time changing. Her cast-off cloak now occupied the pocket dimension where they had been. You think your magic caster stands a chance against dragons that are completely immune to magic? Ha 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 ha, you're even dumber than I thought, warrior, Khajiit says. You insect. You dare talk down to Lord Ainz like that. I will roast you like the bug that you are. Narbril yells at him. Albedo has slowly been walking right towards Clementine like she is taking a stroll. She knew there was no way this woman would be able to lay a finger on her. Even if she could, there was no way her weapons would damage Albedo. She might appear to be wearing inferior quality armor, but Ainz insisted she wears her world-class item armor. He even had her bring her normal battle axe just in case. As she strolled toward the woman, Clementine couldn't help but laugh. Ha 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 ha, you think you can defeat him with a maid, ha 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 ha. Let me guess, are you the hostess? Hee hee, she said that last part to Albedo. With a speed so fast Clementine couldn't even activate one of her martial arts, Albedo closed the distance between them, grabbed Clementine by the throat, and began squeezing. You would make light of the battle maids of the Pleiades. She could crush your entire army by herself if Lord Ainz wished for it. You are the weak one who runs her mouth because she is weak. I am going to make sure your nasty voice doesn't pollute my love's ears ever again, Albedo says as she slowly squeezes the life out of Clementine. Khajiit can't believe that woman got the drop on Clementine so quickly. He didn't particularly like Clementine, but he respected her ability as a warrior and assassin. For someone to move so quickly, even she couldn't react was a reason to be cautious. What he didn't see while he was looking at Albedo was Narbril Gamma slowly ascend into the sky with the fly spell. She wanted a good vantage point when she roasted these worthless insects. As he scanned the area trying to find the mage, he heard something call to him from above, and he looks up to see Narbril Gamma floating there. Up here, maggot. You seem to think magic is useless against skeletal dragons. Then I shall enlighten you, insect. The fee for this lesson will be your life. Skeletal dragons are only immune to the magic of the 6th tier and lower. Since I, Narbril Gamma, can use magic of even higher tiers, it cannot resist my magic, she tells Khajiit. Kill her skeletal dragons, Khajiit orders. Twin, maximized magic, chain dragon lightning. A roaring, coiling stream of dragon-shaped lightning appeared around both of Narbril's hands. The lightning discharges were wider than her arms, and they struck the skeletal dragons. The vast white bodies shuddered from the impact. The twin lightning blasted right through the skeletal dragons' bodies, obliterating the false life that animated their corpses out of existence. The end came in an instant. Under the power of the magic lightning, the skeletal dragons and their supposed absolute immunity to magic were torn asunder. Even though the skeletal dragons had been disintegrated, the lightning strikes did not disappear. The two arcs of dragon-shaped lightning seemed to be searching for their quarry, then they raised their heads and sprang at their final prey. Khajiit's vision was blinded in a sea of white. He had no time to beg for mercy, nor did he have time to scream. His body was roasted as it drowned in a sea of electricity. After the lightning bolt stopped, everyone could see the burnt to a crisp corpse that was left of Khajiit. When everyone realized they stopped paying attention to Albedo, they went to look in her direction only to see her tossing Clementina's body next to Khajiit's. Sorry it took so long. I wanted to make sure that vile woman couldn't speak her disrespectful nonsense to you any longer, love. Albedo tells Ainz. It is quite all right, Albedo. Very good work taking care of that woman. Ainz tells her. He begins to make his way inside the mausoleum to find Nfaria and finish this quest. He knew Nfaria would be in rough shape after this and hoped Taylar could at least heal the boy to the point he would be useful in the future. Right as he is about to enter, he gives Narbral Gamma more orders. Narbral Gamma, good work with that wannabe. Stay out here and keep watch for anyone approaching. If anyone is getting close, send me a message and change back into your cloak and robe. We can't have anyone see you in that outfit. Taylar, Albedo, shall we? Ainz tells them. After you, Supreme One. Taylar says with a smirk. As Ainz passes into the mausoleum, he dismisses his created armor and spreads out his wings. It had been a while since he had been able to do that, and it felt great to be out of that armor. Taylar and Albedo followed suit and also dismissed their illusions and restrictive items to spread their wings. When they came across where Nfaria was, he looked in really rough shape. He was already pretty pale, the blood from his eyes was flowing pretty freely, and he looked like he was about to collapse on the spot. Ainz wasn't 100% sure, but guessed this crown was the culprit for Nfaria's condition. All appraisal magic item. The Crown of Wisdom. This is not an item from Yggdrasil, and I don't think we can replicate it. If we take it off, though, it will cause Nfaria to go insane. It can only be removed safely by someone with the affinity to use this item. Ainz tells them. What does it do, Ainz? Taylar asks him. Cast all appraisal magic item yourself. I think you would understand better than me. It seems to be designed for someone like you, he tells her. She casts the same spell Ainz did and realizes he was right. She understood everything this crown did and the downside to wearing it if you were not a Miko. This could be very useful to her in the future if she found an apprentice worthy of teaching. I guess we will just have to destroy it. We can't return Nfaria insane and expect to get paid. Ainz says. Do you have so little faith in my ability, my love? Taylar asks him. Of course I don't doubt your ability, Taylar, but can you really help him if we keep the crown? Ainz asks. Of course I can. I am the angel of life after all. Curing insanity is nothing to someone like me, she exclaims. Taylar makes her way over to Nfaria. She puts her left hand on his chest and reaches for the crown with her right. The moment she grabs the crown and pulls it off, she casts her spell on Nfaria. Greater Restoration. As the spell goes off, Nfaria immediately collapses to the floor in a heap. Right before he hits the ground, Taylar grabs him. He opens his eyes for a moment and sees a beautiful blonde woman with green eyes and white angel wings holding him. LL Lady TT Tayla is all he gets out before he passes out. Well, it would seem it worked. Now he just needs some rest, she tells everyone. She puts the Crown of Wisdom into her storage for later. She wants to talk to Pandora's actor about the item. There was no one in all of Nazarick that knew as much about magic items as Pandora. She hoped he would have some insight into a magic item from this world that didn't exist in Yggdrasil. Ainz grabs Nfaria from Taylar and throws the boy over his shoulder to make his way back to the surface. Once back on the surface, Hammy sees them in their true forms for the first time and begins to panic. And then monsters. WW what have you done dash Hammy is interrupted by a karate chop to the top of the head by Narbral. Stupid, useless pet. That is the true form of Lord Ainz, Lady Taylar, and Lady Albedo. Show them the proper respect, or I will let Lady Aura turn you into a blanket like she wanted to. Narbril tells Hammy. Dee, does that mean you have another form to Nabe? Hammy asks. I am a doppelganger. Watch, she says. She holds out her hand, and it transforms to show only 3 fingers. Then she transforms it back to a human hand. I see, Nabe. Hammy stutters. Don't look so surprised. You're a servant in the Great Tomb of Nazareth, so don't make such a big deal over such small things. All of those in the Great Tomb are heteromorphic races. You need to get used to it. Anyway, I'm going to strip the magic items from the corpses, so come along and help me. Also, only call me Nabe when we are around humans. My name is Narbril Gamma, and you would be wise to remember the difference. Narbril tells him. Yes, Narbril Gamma. Hammy replies. After Narbril collected all their gear, she headed over to Lord Ainz so he could take a closer look at one of the items. She noticed him talking to 2 shadow demons, but only caught the end of the conversation. Retrieve their bodies after they have been identified as the culprits. I have a promise to keep with one of them, and the other might be of use to us. The shadow demons bowed and disappeared into the shadows. Lord Ainz, I believe you may want to take a look at this. She holds out the Jewel of Hell to him. It is the Jewel of Hell, Narbril. I told you I already have one. Why should I look at it again? He asks her. I apologize, Lord Ainz, but I believe this one might be different from the one you used to possess. Narbril says to him. He grabs the jewel out of her hands and looks it over. It certainly looks exactly like the Jewel of Hell from Yggdrasil. As he is about to put it away and ask Narbril what she meant, he hears a voice in his head. Greetings, O mighty ruler of death, the orb telepathically says to Ainz. So you're an intelligent item, huh? Ainz says. All appraisal magic item. So, you really are called the Orb of Death, not the Jewel of Hell. I thought that ridiculous want-to-be necromancer just didn't know what he was talking about. Ainz says to the item. The orb had still not responded back to him, and he started to wonder why. That's when he finally noticed the reverence the jewel greeted him with. It was like being addressed by one of the subordinates of Nazareth. You may speak, orb. Ainz says to it. Thank you, Supreme Master of Death. You have my deepest thanks. Please accept my utmost respect for the absolute aura of death which you are surrounded by, the orb says to him. So are you really just a jewel of flattery, or do you actually serve a purpose? Ainz asks it. Yes. This one deeply apologizes for this thoughtless request, but has a wish that it hopes you will grant. This one has always felt that it had come to this world in order to spread death, but after meeting a mighty king of death like yourself, this one realizes that it had been truly born in order to serve you, my king, the orb says to him. You don't say. Still sounds like nothing but a bunch of flattery to me. Ainz replies. O mighty supreme overlord of death, please accept this one's eternal fealty and grant me a place amongst your faithful servants, it thinks to him. It sounded sincere enough, and if it had a head, it would probably have been lowered. Ainz raised his fist towards his face and rested his chin on his thumb like he was deep in thought. He had to consider the merits and demerits of taking it as a servant, whether it was reliable, and so on. He looked over the orb again and thought to himself, well, it certainly sounded sincere enough, but how could it actually serve me? It's not like it has legs and I can send it on missions or anything. Maybe someone else could find a use for this thing. I can do all it can do much better than it can, so I can't really use it. Let's call this a test and give it to Albedo. She can determine if it will be useful to Nazareth. Overseer Albedo, I have a task for you. Ainz says. Yes, my love. Albedo says. Ainz noticed she sounded a little sad when she said it. What is wrong, Albedo? You sound off. We have completed our task, gained new possible agents of Nazareth, and this incident will certainly spread our names and lead to a quick promotion. What has you down? He asks her. It is nothing, my love, she replies. Albedo, Tell me what it is, no matter how small you think the problem is. If it is upsetting you, I want to know about it, he tells her. I just didn't like hearing you call me overseer, that is all. I am sorry, I know it is stupid. I have just gotten used to hearing you call me nothing but Albedo, she replies. I am sorry. I didn't know you felt that way, Albedo. I will try to not repeat that in the future, but now you know how it feels. Ainz says. Albedo is a little puzzled at what he means. How could he know this kind of disappointment? He would never get down over something so small. I can see your confusion, Albedo. I'm talking about when you call me Lord and Taylar Lady. We have the same feeling when you call us that you are probably experiencing right now. When Ainz said that to her, it was like a light bulb went off in her mind, and she finally got what he was saying. She didn't realize they felt that way when she said those things. She was just trying to act the way she felt she deserved. She had no idea it affected them this way. I am sorry, Ainz. I will remember this feeling and try to never repeat that mistake again, she tells him. Now that is settled, I do have a task for you. This orb of death is an intelligent magic item. It has sworn its eternal fealty to the supreme overlord of death, but I'm not sure it can be of any use to me or Nazarick. I can do everything it can do, but faster and more efficient. See if you can find a use for it to serve Nazarick. If you feel it is lacking any use, do with it as you see fit. Ainz tells her and hands her the orb. Now that we have that settled, everyone change back into your adventure illusions and let us head back to the city victorious. After all that has happened, we will need to spend some time in Nazarick to sort things out, and I have some tasks I wish to give the Guardians to complete for us. He finishes. Create greater item. As they were making their way back to the gates, Ainz thought of all he needed to do. It had only been a few days, but the tasks were starting to pile up quickly. He knew Taylar wanted to test out her special ability on the Swords of Darkness. He gave Albedo the job of figuring out a usage for the orb, and he knew keeping her away from Nazarick this long would result in her being behind in her duties as overseer. He hoped Pandora's actor was doing a good job filling in so she didn't have too much to do when she returned. He could tell Narbril Gamma could certainly use a break. He was pretty sure she never, ever let her guard down the entire time she traveled with them. He also had plenty to do. There were items to look through that they had just obtained. He needed to fulfill his promise to Khajiit and put him through endless torment. There was more than one way to torture someone, as Khajiit will soon find out. He also needed to send the Guardians out in the world for various tasks. He already knew for certain he wanted to send out Seabass, Shaltir, and Demiurge, but that list could always grow as he went over all the details with everyone. There was a lot to do, and they still had to talk to the guild about this incident. He had no doubt they would be there for hours. There was still also what to do with Lizzie and Nfaria. She had promised Taylar everything she had to save her grandson, and now they needed to figure out what to do with them. It was going to be a long couple of days for Ainz, and he wasn't looking forward to it.
That's it for today. Remember to show your support to the creator of this story if you enjoyed it. If you would like more parts of the story to be uploaded, leave a comment and subscribe to get notified when the story continues. Bye-bye for now, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.